Hi, I'm Nura Asmaizadeh.
And I'm Elizabeth Aston, and we're hosting today's episode of Teen Forum.
Teen Forum is a platform for high schoolers to express their ideas with you, the viewers.
Today we're talking about how technology influences teenagers.
Our panelists include
Sultan Jabari is a freshman at Calabasas High School, an avid Friends watcher, and loves to sleep.
Adam Moyuddin is a sophomore at Calabasas High School, runs a nonprofit called Partners Through Education, and is also on the swim team.
Mark Eddy is a junior at Calabasas High School. He's on the swim team and the football team, and he does speech and debate.
Salman Jabari is a sophomore at Calabasas High School, a vice president for the Baha'i Club, and is an avid video game player. Again, today we will be discussing how technology influences teenagers.
Let's start with Mark. In which aspects of your life do you use technology the most?
I would definitely have to say for school purposes, for academics, about 90% of everything I have to write, I use Google Docs for, and for also slide presentations, Google Slides again, and then just for researching things for different projects. So definitely schoolwork.
I use technology in like everything, from my social life to academics in school. I use it like all the time, like no matter what I'm doing.
I feel like at this point in our high school careers, technology really governs everything we do, and that there's not really an aspect of our lives that doesn't have some interaction with technology.
Well, I use technology for almost everything, just like my brother. I use it mostly for entertainment purposes, but I also use it a lot for school as well and for social purposes as well.
And on average, how many hours do you think you're spending each day using some sort of device?
I would think most of my day, probably the majority of time I'm at school, so maybe 6 to 8 hours.
How about in your classes? How much technology do you use in class?
We use a lot of technology in our classes, like especially like in most classes we use technology. Like once our internet went down in our school, and there was nothing we could do in our classes. So it's really important to educate us in schools.
What about you?
Well, technology in our school plays a really big part into it. We're using it all the time in our classes. Like even some notes that we take in class are like taking a picture of and then use at home or put on Google Classroom. And yeah, it's just all presentations and like everything.
What about you?
Probably almost whenever I'm doing school, unless it's like you said, a written assignment. I'm always, if it's anything school related, I'm gonna be doing it on computers.
I'm the same, yeah.
Yeah.
And do you guys prefer having the online assignments, or do you prefer having an actual paper and pen that you get to write with? Definitely
prefer having it online. For me, it's just easier to focus. If you make a mistake in a paper, it's not like you have to re-erase what you did. You can just hit the backspace and it's like it never even happened. Also, just in writing it in general, it takes way less time as long as you're good at using a keyboard. And everything's just so much more available. It's so much easier to get at. If there's any resources I need, just look them up and they're there for me. So.
While using technology online for school, it makes the entire learning process more streamlined, in my opinion. So if we turn in something on Google Classroom, we still have access to it and we can still use it as a resource later on, even 5 years down the line.
I think that depends on what stuff it is. Like some things I'd prefer for it to be on like paper and pen. Like I prefer writing it because it'll like save my memory for longer, and I prefer having it on paper right there in front of me. But then there's also like some things that like I turn in, which I prefer it being online as well. So.
For those of you who prefer it being online, was there ever a time when your Wi-Fi was down, so it affected whether or not you can complete an assignment?
Yeah.
Yeah, that for me it was a pretty big setback because I'll have all these papers set out, and if it's due tomorrow, then got to redo it by hand, right? Or go somewhere that does have Wi-Fi and just take care of it, finish it there.
For me personally, I've never really had it been an issue, because if you're using, say, Google Docs, you can still type whatever you need to without using the internet, as long as you have a computer. Otherwise, there's so many places like here at the library or at Starbucks or someone else's house where they always have internet, or you could even use your phone as a hotspot.
Now, since a majority of us here prefer having the online assignments, what problems do you think it's caused in school? Because I know personally I'd have kids randomly come up to my documents and have them share it with themselves so they can later copy it. Or it's become a lot easier to copy things with phones and stuff like that. What do you guys think?
Well, like as like from people in front of me, like we're sitting in class, I see people instead of doing their work, they're actually texting their friends and stuff, or watching some random movies or videos. So instead of doing their actual work, they're just distracting themselves, so they're not really learning.
Yeah, I see that too a lot. It'll be like, hey, I'm gonna get on my homework. The teacher will ask them, all right, you're only doing schoolwork, right? They get on it and they just look up their favorite game, just an online game, just to pass the time. And it's not like it's not like their favorite game, but they just are doing it for the sake of avoiding doing the homework. So it can be a problem in that regard.
I also think that if you're doing stuff on technology, it makes the student more accountable to their actual work instead of the teacher being accountable over what the student does and their learning process.
That's true. Do you guys remember, I think it was last month when the fires happened around Calabasas, and we had absolutely no Wi-Fi at school. We were basically just in a limbo where we couldn't do anything. I was just sitting in all my classes. What do you think should have been done there? Do you think we're too dependent on technology in schools?
Personally, in my French class, like literally everything, all our homeworks, everything is done online. And when the fires were like there and like Wi-Fi was down, it was really bad because like none of us could be able to do anything except if we were at home, and we just couldn't do anything in class. We just sat there, just doing nothing, talking to our friends, wasting time.
How do you think they should have handled that?
I honestly have no idea.
I think a little bit less reliance on technology would definitely be more beneficial just in that regard. Because although it's like super accessible for us, which makes a lot of the work we do easy, we do have, like you said, just too much reliance on it. And so when these sort of things do happen, it can get in the way of it and settle a lot of kids back in their work.
Maybe because of the longevity of the fire, after, say, the first week, teachers could have understood what was happening and found a place with internet to be able to print out documents on physical paper just to continue the learning process.
But there's a good side to it. So like, for example, if technology is working, then you're wasting less paper, like by putting it up on like a PowerPoint and like actually like presenting the notes in front of the entire class instead of like handing out a separate piece of paper to everybody.
That's
Saves
true.
paper. So.
That's true. Now, stepping aside from academics, how do you think technology has affected relationships with your family? Has it improved them? Has it made them worse? What do you guys think, just in general?
I feel like it's improved them because, like, let's say you're here in America and you have cousins, I don't know, in China. You can still talk to them over the internet. Like, you don't need to send a mail, like letter, which takes like months to get there. You could just send a text and it'll get to them in like a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Although I do believe there's other side to it where we see a lot of the time that kids get so caught up in the technology that's right in front of them, whether it's social media or a game or whatever else it is that's got their attention, and they're less focused on their own family members and their relatives. And a lot of times kids they really enjoy hanging out with their friends, but they'll actually spend more time looking at their phone, seeing what other friends are doing while they're hanging out with those friends or with their family. So it may, from like long distances and other places, it can be good because it can help them get in touch with those people, but it also takes them away from the place they are right now, which is where they should be focused.
I know I've experienced both the positive and the negative. I have my grandparents who live in Australia, and it's hard for us to talk to them because when we're asleep, they're awake. When we're asleep, they're awake. So having FaceTime and having that ability to just actually see their faces and having that like in-person feel, it's really improved our relationship. But like you were saying, I've also been in restaurants where you see 5-year-olds with their iPads and their parents on their phones, and they're all eating, but they're all watching YouTube or on Instagram.
Yeah.
What do you think should be done about that?
Well, first of all, everybody, the first thing they do when they get their meal, they take a picture of it for Instagram or for Snapchat.
It's true.
And like I feel like it's
Guilty.
like dominated everything. Like, how many times have you gone to Instagram and seen pictures of food people posted saying, "Wow, this is so good," or like anything like that? So
I don't think there's really a solution to have more personal interactions between families and friends. So over a general spectrum, the internet and technology for communication is 100% positive, because you could have a connection from across the world. I know I was playing a VR game and I had a 20-minute conversation with someone from the Isle of Man on politics. So without that, there would have been no way for that to happen.
I do think there can be a solution for it. It's in the family's control, their area of management. They just have to harness that. And if they see one of their kids playing, if a parent sees their children playing a video game or on their phone or on an iPad or whatever for too long, they can go to them and say, hey, put that away for now.
Yeah.
Let's have some one-on-one time. Talk
But
about
even in today's society, it's become a solution. Instead of dealing with your kid crying in a restaurant, even a 3-year-old or a 3-month-year-old, you see them just in their stroller with their iPad. Instead of dealing with it and talking to them, it's just become an easy fix. Here, take your iPad, go watch whatever you want.
exactly like instant pacifier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also just becoming like a parenting, like, oh, I have to go to work, here, watch TV for 3 hours so I can. It's becoming a new babysitter. How old were you guys when you got your first phone?
I was 9 years old when I got my first phone.
I was 10.
I was done with 8th grade, so coming into high school freshman year, I was about 13 when I got it.
I got my first cell phone at 8.
Yeah. So do you think that age is getting lower and lower?
Absolutely,
Yes.
all
Yes.
the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, when was it? What was it when the iPhone first came out? Like
Uh,
maybe ages.
10 years ago, probably.
And do you know how old the age was for then? I'm sure it was pretty like
It's probably like 20.
probably 10
Yeah.
or 12 or old.
Way
Yeah,
up
probably
there.
20.
Yeah.
More like now we're down to 2 and 3, like you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
As soon as the kids in kindergarten, they're already getting on the iPad and learning how to work it. So it's definitely, I don't know how much lower it can get
Yeah.
than that, but I think it's gotten about as low as
I
it
saw
can.
my cousins when they were little. They had like each of them had iPads separately when they were like when they couldn't even walk yet. They all had their own iPads, just doing their own thing all the time, just playing games and just.
And since the age is getting lower and lower, there's been a lot of articles going around how the social skills of our generation is non-existent because kids are just staring at screens. Have you guys had any experience about that, or had anything to say about that?
In my experience, I think the problem is the style of phone or the type of phone, because I think we could all probably agree our first phone was probably a flip phone, where now a lot of kids, I volunteer at the elementary school, kids have iPhone X's, which just came out as a 7-year-old. But for us, it was more of just a communication device to communicate with our parents, to have a level of safety, where now it's more of a toy.
Yeah, but it's also become
Good point.
mandatory to have that, because whenever I go out, my parents always say, do you have your phone? I don't know where you're going.
The communication
Yeah.
aspect, absolutely, and I think that's exactly what he was getting at. But now, when you bring the iPhone in the picture, it does so much more than just that.
Yeah.
Right.
And then everyone's taking advantage of that, and that's where it can lead to problems and
remember
spending
when
too much time.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I remember when I first got my phone, I was like, okay, now I can go whenever I want with my friends, and my mom will know where I am, because she can just call me or text me. But then, like, it's the exact opposite of that nowadays, where people just get their phone, as what he said, it's just a toy. Like,
Yeah.
you just have,
Right.
like, you have fun with it.
And I've had many interactions with kids much younger than me, because when I do tutoring at the library, for example, where they don't know how to formulate words, as bad as that sound. They're just like, they don't want to talk to you, they just want to stare at their phones.
Yeah.
Oh yes, like, how's your day? They'll just stare at you.
Heads down the whole time,
Yeah.
just looking at the screen.
Yeah.
I'm all right. I'm
What do you
good.
guys think should be done about that? Because I feel like at the rate we're going with how many technological advances we're having in society, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse.
I do think less time on it, definitely. The parent can take it away and just say, I mean, if the child is like needs some form of entertainment for a set amount of time, that's fine. You can give it to them, but then you have to have restrictions, some limit for it, because they'll take it away. A lot of times the parent will give the toddler, or however old the kid is, one of these devices, and they just come back to them whenever and take it away. And the kid will spend 6 hours, or however long the battery life is.
I mean, some parents themselves, instead of paying attention to their child, they're like lying down on their couch watching TV.
Yeah,
or
they're the
something
ones
like that.
caught up in it. Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
It's become a distraction.
yeah,
For everyone.
And you see that even with like texting and driving, that's become something that 10 years ago probably wasn't an issue, but now it's killing like a teen a day. I think that was the statistic I heard.
Yeah.
It's just
Probably,
such a
yeah.
distraction.
It's the biggest cause of teen deaths in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. What apps do you use most often?
I use social media like Snapchat, Instagram.
For apps, yeah, most of the time in social media, it'll be, like he said, either Instagram, maybe Snapchat, and maybe a tweet now and then.
For me, it's mostly Snapchat and YouTube, and then some Instagram when I'm like really bored. But
For me, it's usually Google or Safari. I try to not spend that much time on social media, been limiting myself.
It's kind of like a double-edged sword because I use obviously social media, but I'm also able to use Quizlet and different study apps like that. I have Google Classroom, Google Docs, Mail. It's all connected, so it's easy just to have that little thing that everything is on.
Yeah. Usually when I do my schoolwork and everything, like I don't do my phone very often. If I use it, it is for text and things. When I do my homework, I usually have that on my computer, and I just do everything I need to do on there, which is where I spend probably most of my time.
Yeah. Which apps that you use do you think are the most beneficial to you? Like Quizlet or something like that?
Or are there apps that you don't even have apps that are beneficial? It's just kind of.
Yeah. It's just
Anything
the
additional
game.
beside the messaging app and the phone app, it's not particularly useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use a lot of social media to like catch up with like old friends and stuff. Like I see what they've been up to, what they're doing, and like just basically catch up with like what's happening and stuff.
I like Google a lot because it allows me to have access to a computer in my pocket, which I feel like is one of the biggest reasons people even carry phones.
Mm-hmm.
Can you guys even imagine your life without technology? I know that's kind of a big question because it's everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's technology. But can you imagine?
Yeah, but it's scary.
I can sort of imagine it. Everything's a lot harder, obviously, but we can still get by without it.
You got this now.
I don't see it as a possibility to live without technology because technology is more than just us carrying cell phones and us having laptops. It's having pacemakers, hospital equipment, cars, even like Teslas.
That's very true. It's kind of the advancement in society. What do you have to think?
I mean, if you think about it, just 100 years ago, there were nothing that were like anything close to this right now. Like 100 years ago, like there was just nothing. Like there's no iPads, no phones. Like the invention of car would like just started basically. Like it was just like nothing. Like, it was really hard to live, I think.
And it also depends on like how broadly you define the term technology. Because if we're talking about cell phones and computers and things that just came out within the past few decades, then we could still get out by without them. But if you think about the term technology as in any time somebody made a new invention, well, I cannot imagine a world without that.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys for an awesome discussion.
And thank you for watching at home. If you'd like to watch other episodes, visit our website, cityofcalabasas.com.
And if you'd like to join the discussion or have any ideas for us, please email info@cityofcalabasas.com.
We'll see you next time at Teen Forum.
Thank you.